I want to talk to you all today about something close to my heart. And the title of this particular podcast is called They Don't Have to Cheer. And what I mean by that is we don't have to have cheerleaders in our corner in order to move forth and do the things that God has put in our heart to do. And I feel like even from my own, just my own personal story that I've at times had to catch myself and realize that there's times when God has given a vision or a dream to me. He didn't give it to, the people around me, some of my friends or family members or, those that I'm close to. And in the past, I used to get really bothered and or hurt, I think is a really good word, when you ever tell a friend or tell someone a dream that God gave you or vision or plan or goal. Let's just say a goal, something that you're trying to achieve in life. And the response wasn't quite, how you wanted it to be. Like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. Or, oh, all right. Or, well, how are you going to do that? If that's ever happened to you, then you're going to love this particular episode. Because I did some praying on this and God put a story in my heart that I want to share about. Remember the story of Joseph in Genesis chapter 37. Now you can read chapters 37 all the way up to chapter 45 if you want to kind of get a whole broad spectrum of his story. But I've spoken about Joseph before and I love his story because Joseph, and I'm not going to walk through the whole story with him. I just want to focus on the first part, chapter 37. Joseph was given a dream, or I guess you can call it a vision. And God was already showing him what was going to happen by the time he was right at about, I think, 30 years old. So he was 17 at this point. And in his dream, he saw his brothers and I think his siblings, his family, like bowing down to him. The Bible talks about, and I want to be specific here, so if you give me a second, in Genesis chapter 37, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I have another dream. I've had another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream that you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So that's the shortest part of the story in Genesis 37. So here's where I'm going with this. I like to look at things in black and white. And you guys know I'm not a minister. I'm not a minister. So you biblical scholars, please correct me if I'm saying anything that's not accurate. But the black and white of the story is that Joseph was given a dream. And you guys know if you continue reading all the way through chapter 45, basically, that dream came true. Joseph ended up ruling all of Egypt. He ended up being second in command to Pharaoh. And when that great famine came, his family did, in essence, bow down to him. And Joseph ended up saving his entire family and feeding them and all that good stuff. And so it all worked out well. But what really caught me with this is Joseph had a dream that no one else understood. No one else felt would happen. And he didn't have the cheerleaders or the support or the fan base to help him realize that dream will come true. And you may say, well, Z, where are you going with this? And here's where I'm going. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel that God has put something in your heart, he's given you a vision, he's given you a dream. And I've had that happen to me a number of times before. And you've gone out and shared this with family members or friends or associates or what have you. I don't want you to get discouraged or feel, angry or what have you, because maybe you think that they're jealous or they're hating on you or something like that. Not everyone is jealous or is hating on your dream. It's just that what I want you to realize is that it wasn't given to them. The dream wasn't given to them. I really believe there's people right now that I'm speaking to that have some amazing dreams, goals, things in mind that they want to do. And you've not made those moves simply because whoever it is that you've confided in or shared this with didn't respond the way you were hoping they would. Maybe in some cases responded negatively. I know that happened to me. You know, with a couple major power moves that were made in my life when God put it on my heart to do some things. Even with this podcast, believe it or not, because this podcast is still fairly new. When I shared this with a few people, and I'm very careful with who I share things with, but I didn't get the initial response I thought I would get. But God gave me the dream. He gave me the vision. You know, for those who don't know me, and by the way, my name is Z. You're listening to Unlocking Greatness Podcast with Zenja Glass. My podcasts are on all platforms, and some of you may be watching the YouTube channel as well. But anyway, when God gave me that vision and gave me that dream and said, I need for you to share with other people these intimate moments that we spend together, I actually didn't want to go on social media at all. And for those who know me, you know I'm a private person. And it's not like this is what I do for a living. But God put in my heart, there's people out here that need to hear these messages that I'm feeding you. And I says, okay, God, I'll do it, but you got to go with me. So when I shared this just with a few people, of course, some of the initial responses, actually one of the first responses was, believe it or not, well, how are you going to make money from that? And then I had some responses like, okay, so where is that going to lead to? Like, how are you going to do that? But you've been helping people find jobs for 30 years. You're on a staffing agency. How are you going to all of a sudden start doing a podcast? And I had to remember that it wasn't that these people in my life didn't want to see me do good. I truly believe as I reflect on it, it just comes down to the basics that God didn't put it on their heart to do this. So how can they have the passion for what I'm doing when the dream wasn't shared with them? They didn't see the vision. And I know that there are people listening to this podcast or perhaps watching my YouTube channel right now who are in those exact shoes. Many of you know what you need to do. And I'm sure that God has shared with you some things that he wants you to do. But because you don't have that support, or maybe you get some negative comments, how are you going to do this? You know, your bank account don't look like you're going to be able to do that, or you got a lot going on that's not possible right now, or you're not even qualified to do that. Or maybe you've not shared anything with anybody because you're just completely frozen and scared what people are going to think, what people are going to say. I am praying that this short podcast opens something in your heart, something in your spirit, to where you let go of that and you follow the dream that God has set out for you. Joseph is an amazing example, an amazing example. The dream was given to him. So when he shared that with his brothers, they just didn't understand. And in fact, they actually did end up becoming very jealous of him. And you guys know the story. They sold him into slavery and so on. And God still ended up raising him up from that. But what I'm hoping that you guys see is that when God has given you a vision and when he's given you a dream, you may not always have the cheerleaders in your corner cheering you on, saying, I think that that's great. Go for it. You can do it. Sometimes you have that. Sometimes you do. But do not allow people to distract you or to discourage you from doing the things that God put in your heart to do. The other thing that I want to talk about briefly, and this is a little off subject, but it's in the same parameters, is what I've noticed with some people. I talk to a lot of people, by the way, especially people that are either, looking to in some kind of way get some advice, whether it's advice about, God or growing closer to God, or believe it or not, about business advice, because I've been in business for many years. I've noticed that so many people like to sort of get a group of people together to sort of do the project or the goal or the vision with them out of fear that, I don't want to do it by myself. So let me get this friend that can help me, and let me get this person that can help me. And especially with some of the younger generation, I've noticed that they love to do things with some friends. I'm going to get 2-3 of my friends together and we're all going to start this, this YouTube channel, or we're all going to start this, whatever kind of business. Here's a little bit of advice I want to give you on that. When God gives you a dream, when he gives you a vision, and when he plants a seed inside of you to do something that he's equipped you for, You need to be very, very careful with getting business partners, getting friends, gathering a little group around you so you can feel good about having some kind of support. You need to be very careful with doing that in the beginning of your process. Because when you are following the vision or the dream that God has given you, it is not a school group project. I want to make that clear again. You're not in school, and it is not a group project. Many times when God has you do things, at least in my personal opinion, that is for you. Now, there's nothing wrong. I'm not against partnerships, so please don't comment that, why are you against partnerships? And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying be very wise, because at the beginning of the process, when everybody's broke, it makes sense. Let me get these other friends and people to help me. She can do this and I can do this and da da da. But if you've ever done any school projects, you notice how at the end of those projects when you have to grade, grade each other, and it's sort of a weighted scale in terms of the individual grades that people get. There's always someone, and I'm right, that was a part of that team that did not carry their weight. So while in the beginning it might make sense for you to get one or two people to kind of help you off with getting this off the ground, and oh yeah, she's going to do this, she's going to film for me while I do this, or she's going to be the one to whatever the business is or whatever the dream is you're trying to do. It might make sense in the beginning when everybody's broke. But when God blows on the vision and the dream he's given you, you might find yourself running into problems later down the line, because now you formed a business with these people and they are a part of that. So all I'm saying is be careful. Do not feel like you have to have cheerleaders around you in order to take that first step. I hope that resonates. You don't need cheerleaders on your team or around you when you are walking in purpose and when you are fulfilling the dreams that God put in your heart. Now, I am not saying do not seek counsel. In fact, there's an amazing passage, and I wrote it down before I started talking here, in Proverbs 15:22, that talks about plans fail for lack of counsel. So I have no problem with, get some advice, and be careful who you get advice from, by the way. If you feel it's someone that's mature in the Lord, someone that you can trust and really knows you, to get some advice from, I'm all for getting some counsel, getting some advice. But all I'm saying is that I want to get some of you out of the mindset that you have to have cheerleaders, that you have to have this team or this group effort in order to take the first steps and to do what you need to do, so that you don't feel so scary because, oh my goodness, this is a lot. You've got to realize that God makes provisions along the way. So I pray that you guys are encouraged. This message came to me the other night. I was asking God, what is it that he wants me to speak and tell people? And God put in my heart, far too many people out here are being discouraged because they don't have the cheerleaders. They don't have all the cheers in the background. They just need to take the first step and do what I told them to do. So I pray that you move forth with the visions and the dreams that God has put in your heart, and do not for one moment delay what God has told you to do because you're waiting on your cheering team to come along, or because you feel you need this group of people to be with you. Remember the story of Joseph. It is an amazing, amazing story to live by. I love you all. I pray that this short message encouraged you, and I look forward to talking to you again. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. This is Z again. Do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the notification button. Bye-bye.